Cool. So I guess, hi everyone. Uh, Welcome to another episode of Office Hours. My name is Rahul, and we have Ramesa here, who is our host. And today we will be basically demoing a couple of things. One would be geocoding, which is the ability to send either coordinates and get an address back, or send an address and get its coordinates back. We would be using the Google Places API. I have prepared a short demo using the Xano backend, but you can use any backend following the structure that I'll show you today. And if we don't have a ton of questions, I think we should be able to cover it in 20-25 minutes, and then we'll move on to the push notifications. And I can either show you how to work with push notifications in Draftbit or show you how you set that up. For the setup, we have good docs available in our docs section. So I would prefer showing you how to actually get a push token and use it to send notifications. But it's up to you. If you want me to show the setup, I can do that as well.
That sounds great.
All right, so let's get started. I will share my entire screen because I would need to, at some point of time, show you Insomnia. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Cool. All right, so starting with geocoding. So first thing that we'll do is we'll use a map component, and I'll show you how you use the map component to get coordinates for if someone clicks on the map, we will get those coordinates, send that back to our server, and return an address back. If obviously we select an addressable location, because if you're if you're putting your marker in the middle of a forest, you'll probably not see an address there, right? So let's get started. And Ramesa, I'm not able to see the other screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any point of time, or if anyone else has.
Yeah, and
Cool.
please raise your hand, and you can ask your questions just yourself, by yourself. Feel free to ask your questions to Rahul.
Thank you. So there we go. We'll start with the map component. I'll just show you how you actually do click to get coordinates first. Just move this over here. So in our map view, we have something called triggers. So there's on region change and on press. So we'll use the on press trigger. I need to set up a variable here. Let's save it. So the way I try to do these office hours is I try to do everything live. So, there might be mistakes or I might be doing things wrong. So feel free to point those out if you feel that way. And also, again, let me know if you have any questions. So this is a this is a slightly different pattern than on other components, so people might have not seen it. So on this map view trigger, let me actually just go back and show it to you again. So on region, on press, when we have a couple of system variables that we give with this trigger. That's the latitude and the longitude. So just to show you very, very quickly, we'll just do latitude and then print longitude. Go to the web view, because in draft view, just so that everyone is aware, we don't really register click events and don't show the console logs. So we would need to be in the web view for it. Let's just clear this up. And let's try to click right here. So now you see that we're getting coordinates for the point that I clicked on. I can probably zoom in for a better example. So for instance, if I click here, you see I get different coordinates. Does that make sense? Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And if you want a little bit fancier pattern to actually show people where you've clicked, then you can do this as well. You'll have a map marker. Okay, for this map marker, we can go to data. So it takes in latitude and longitude, so we can basically, do something live here. For instance, actually, probably easier if I create two string variables. Just create latitude. Longitude. Here.
There is a question, Rahul. Shan is asking, do you need a Google Maps API key for this, or is this native to the device?
Great question. So while you're in Draftbit, you don't need an API key because you're using Draftbit's API key. But when you want to publish your app to production, then you would need to go to settings and you would need to go to integrations and add an Android Maps key and an iOS Map key. Otherwise, the maps won't appear in your app or even in your PWA as well. If you're using a custom domain, if you're using Draftbit's domain, because it's on domain, our domain, the maps would work there. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so going back to the map view, we would go to on press. So instead of console logging, we'll actually set those variables. I'll use the set variable action. I'll choose my variable lat. Then map this to latitude.
And Davey asks, where do we find those keys for each device?
So let me see if I can quickly search here. Just do a Google search, Davey. You'll land on this page. This is where I usually go from as well. So you just click on go to the credentials page. It will ask you to run the setup. It would need your billing account to be updated on Google as well, because after a certain limit, it's a paid feature. I mean, Google will ask you to pay for it, and you would want to restrict your keys. So you can restrict your keys based on URLs. You can restrict your keys based on your app's bundle ID. So if you're using the same bundle ID on Apple and Google, then you probably can just generate one key. If you're using different bundle IDs, then you would generate two separate keys, restrict them to your bundle IDs. If you're using the web as well, then you would create three keys, one for the web, one for app, for the iOS app, and the other one for the Android app. Just remember, right now we don't have a way of updating the web key from the builder. You can send in a message on intercom and we can do the updation for you. I hope that answers your question, Davey.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I'll set longitude. Now, let's see if this actually works. If I click here, now you can see it's actually showing this marker where we clicked. I personally find it pretty cool, so I thought I'll just demo it to everyone. All right, so now basically we did the first part. So we have what you call it, the coordinates, and now we want to get an address back for it. Now, so let's go to Xano. I have 3 endpoints here. One is, okay, let's not get confusing. Let's just use the convert lat and long one. So this is pretty straightforward. It will ask you for a lat and long. I think it's comma separated. So for instance, if I do 45, comma 55, if we get an address back. Apparently we do. So as you can see, we're getting the address back for these components. So this is the endpoint, and I'm not going to show you how I set this up, but it's quite straightforward. But if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer those for you. So let's connect this endpoint to my app because I haven't done it yet. Let's create an app. Call this Xano. Give it a base URL. Object. Thinking about it. So this is an open endpoint, so I don't need any authentication built in. I can just hit test and get the data back. So it says invalid request. That's probably because the parameters I just entered, there's no location there. So let's just show the one that we used for 4555. So I'll add this back in here. See if we get a response back. Let's take a look what's going on. Maybe it's not taking this as a string.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah. And it says quads here, and I'm sending lat long. So let's try with quads, and then we'll see if that works. So you have to make sure that the input that you're doing, it needs to match your query parameter here, right? And let's try to make it into a string as well, and give it a go. Invalid request, lat long parameter. Let's take a look again.
Yeah, David sent a valid latitude longitude in chat. Maybe you can try using that.
Oh yeah, we can. Oh, it did go through. So let me see if I can get those from messaging here. Thanks, Davey. All right, so this is the formatted address. Is that somewhat correct? David, that was a question for you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just sent you a random location I'm using to run test, and because sometimes the format, when you have it too short, it just doesn't recognize anything. It needs to be super precise. It happens to me a lot. So, don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because it needs to, the location needs to have a house or must have an address there for Google to tell you the address for it, right? It won't tell you an address for a forest or something. So as you can see, we are getting the data back, and it's kind of like, breaks it down, but it also gives you the full address right here. Does that make sense? Do you want me to show you how this would work here? So let's try that actually. Let's just add another variable. Address. Now what needs to happen is when someone presses the map right here, we'll make an API call. That would be one service. Get. So this is where it kind of boils down to how you're designing stuff, right? So I've kind of put myself into a pickle because I have latitude and longitude as two separate things. So let's see how we can do this. And this also kind of brings up the asynchronous nature of set variable. Actually, this is very nice to demo to everyone. So let's get last result. So just so you guys are aware, setting a variable is an asynchronous action, which means that if I set a variable called lat and then long, and if I try to make a request using those variables, it's going to work erratically. Why? Because it's not necessary by the time that you come to this action that these variables are set. To avoid these situations, what we do is we use the result name instead of the variable. So instead of sending lat, my string variable, I will send lat result. And same with longitude is I will send the long result variable. Now, because I've designed it in this way, I would need to use a custom function, which is basically going to concatenate these strings and return those. So let's do that.
Just a question for you, Raul. Can we use just the transform function in this case? Can you create a variable using lat and then concat and then longitude without using a custom code?
Yeah, you can do that as well. That's actually a good idea. Let's try that. So Draftbit, there's so many ways that you can basically do something. So let's try it. So we'll use actually in this case, then we don't really need to set those variables. Actually, we do because we are setting out the marker there, but we can also use this action data directly. So I can do, to be sure, it's lat and then long. So I'll do latitude and then use concat and then use longitude. We can close this action editor. One step that won't drive you guys crazy or is what I do the best. I mean, I recommend to everyone is keep console logging to make sure the logic that you're following is making sense. So just like that, what I'll do is I've just set up my API request. So I just want to print that out just to see the API setup that I just did is working as expected. So I'll close this. Let's do one here. So we get the response back. The response, we're getting invalid request. Now let's take a look. And for those who are using, go ahead.
You were using screen variables when concatenating, so shouldn't we using the result names?
Yeah, right. Let's take a look.
In the API request section,
yeah,
these are screen variables.
Oh no, so I'm using the action data from Mesa, which is synchronous, right? So
yeah, okay.
Maybe the comma in between latitude, string concat, comma, string concat, longitude.
Yeah, we have a comma in between.
Right,
Davey.
Nice catch, Davey. We'll do comma. Then we'll do another string concat. And we do longitude. And give it another go. Looks like we got a 200 back.
Yeah, 200.
Now, because I'm just selecting a city,
address.
you know, there's going to be a bunch of addresses that are coming back. Ew. There you go, address components. And then geometry, place ID, types, and formatted address. Oh, which is cool because it's giving me the city name that I clicked on and some other close by cities as well. So obviously you would want to basically use that on a street address and not in like such a zoomed or unzoomed way. So let me see if I can zoom in to maybe, I don't know, do we see houses here? Yeah, right here. So whoever lives here, let's find their address. Results, so there we go. So we got an address back, which is 133 Azukar Avenue. And as you can see, the first one is the closest one that you get back. Do you want me to actually show that address on the screen, or does that like gives enough information for everyone?
That makes sense to me.
Cool. Anyone else? Because like we are already at the 30-minute mark, so I want to cover push notifications as well. And the other part of this would be the Google Play suggestions.
So maybe we can just cover what the steps that we can take after, getting this response to, show it on the screen.
Definitely. So basically, once we do the API request right here on press, instead of logging this result here, you would do something like set variable and set the variable from the response back. So it would be address. Let's see if I can quickly do it. API result, and then I just need to look at the format that we get back in the output right here. Fonts. Oh, need to refresh it. Why doesn't it show me?
It wasn't recorded.
Oh. The output exceeded the maximum threshold, so it's not going to show me here, which is not that great because trying to find something from here would be a bit harder. So, okay. So API, so it would be response dot results, and then the first one. Cool. I don't know if I'm going to remember that, but I think people get the gist, so that'd be. I'm trying to remember that in my head. It's going to be hard. So we had response dot result dot results, and then the first element, I guess. Just make sure. So response, result, then results, the first element of the result.
And formatted address.
Yep. Get it at 0. Actually, so just so you know, you can do this in this once, or you can also separate it by using multiple transforms, which is probably easier. So I'll do response, result, results.
And Davey has an advice for users. I mean, yeah, it's a very clever tip, by the way, Davey. Thank you. He was using ChatGPT to help him to, you know, get the dot notation to access a specific the key value that he needs.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense.
So I think this should sort it. Let's take a look. Formatted address. I think that's what it was. So let's add a text component. Screen. And let's move it above the map so we can actually see it. There we go. Let's map this. To address. I think I can also set the default zoom level of a map if I wanted to. Initial zoom, let's make it 16. There we go, that's better. Or I can actually zoom in a bit more. Let's look at this address. And there we go. So it's
Yeah, cool.
311 Unada Drive. All right, so well, in the end, I covered everything, but hopefully this helps. And then usually you want to send this address back to your server or save it. If you want to just send it back to your server, then you can probably do that on the server side itself, so you don't have to display it here. But if you want to display it on the front end, you can do it as well. All right, so moving on to the next one. I'll explain the endpoints first. So we have basically two endpoints here. So this is using the Google Places API. It can be used as an address completion as well as suggestions. So for instance, if I go to Places, I have a query, which is going to be my address string. So for instance, if I do 123 Main Street and run this, it's going to give me suggestions for these places, right? So 123 Main Street, Gridley. The other one is White Plains, and so on. I think most of you would have seen this in many applications or websites, is that you start typing in an address, it will give you suggestions for that address. So most of the times, they would be using something very, very similar to this. But this is a two-step process. What happens is that Google doesn't really give you the coordinates for this location. It will give you this, which is suggestions, and it will also give you something called a place ID. Now, this place ID is what we are looking for, so I can copy this one. So once we select a place, we have its place ID. We can then use that to get the coordinates. If I run this one, if I put in the place ID right here, hit run, now it's basically returning back response for that particular location, which is again 123 Main Street in Edison. And if I keep scrolling, it will then provide you the location coordinates for it, lat and long. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Any questions about this one? Because if I try to implement this in Draftbit, it's going to take way longer than the 20 minutes that we have left.
No, that works.
Cool. All right, I'm just gonna. Well, I guess I don't need to stop sharing because there's no other questions here. So let's move on to push notifications. We'll try to make this a bit more interactive. So what we'll do is, for those of you who have the live preview apps handy, that would be cool, because what we'll do is we'll generate a push token for you and send you a live push notification. I hope that sounds good.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, let's give it a go. And it's pretty straightforward. So do you want me to talk a little bit about the concept of push notifications, or are we all familiar here?
Yes, please. Please,
Oh, okay.
Alexander.
Sure. Oh, hey, Alexander. Good to see you here, by the way. So with Draftbit, we use Expo's push notification service, which is a free service, which basically gives you a unique push token for an installed instance of your app. So for instance, if your app is installed on an iOS device, you will have a unique push token. If the same app is installed on an Android device, you will have another unique push token for that installation of your app. So keep that in mind. The push token is your unique identifier for Expo to basically send you a push notification. So you can tailor a notification to a specific user in your app. If I'm sending a push notification to Alexander, I would store his push token with his user data so I can recognize who does this push token belong to, and then I can customize my push notification to Alexander saying, hey, Alexander, your iOS bill was published successfully, for an example. According to Expo, push tokens are persistent usually, which means that if you uninstall the app and install the app again, it would tend to remember your push token, but that's not true always. So keep that in mind. Push notifications basically require a setup as well. So the app or software that you're using the app on, so for instance, your iOS app knows that your app is using push notifications. So when you are creating an iOS app on Apple, that's why we asked you to take the push notification capability. I hope that makes sense. So in Draftbit, we have a no-code way of getting a push token. So let's implement that. I can do that on a button. I can do that on screen load. A couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you're using this is on iOS, if a user says no to push notification service, the system won't allow you to ask for that permission again, unless they would need to manually go in and allow push notifications capability for the app. Only then they would be able to get a push notification. Same with Android. I think Android does let you ask it again, but they are changing their policy. So it's best practice to basically ensure you're not asking for those permissions where it doesn't make sense. Usually, the best practice back in the day was you would have a dedicated screen in the onboarding process in which the user is shown that, hey, do you need push notifications in your app or not? It's a best practice. It's not a requirement. All right, for now, I'll just use this button component and use our on press trigger. We have get Expo push token. We'll use this action. This is the inbuilt no code action. It lets you set these two messages. One is fail to get push notification. So this usually happens when the user has denied push notification request or permission. And this device message is only mostly for Draftbit. Just so you guys are aware, push notifications won't work in the simulator. You would need to use an actual physical device to receive a push notification. And you can customize these messages. So let's put in a result name. Let's try token result. This is where we'll get the result. And now in our case, I'm just console logging it, but you would usually be sending it back to your server. I'll just log it here. Token result. So if everything is set up correctly, which it should be because it's not much of a setup, it's very, very simple. I'm going to open this QR code scanner and use my device, use the Draftbit Live Preview app to scan it. Whoever wants to give it a try, they can do it as well.
But we need Android device, not iOS, right?
Oh, it would work on either, right? I'm trying first with the iOS device. And once you scan this code, you would see something. I'm just gonna open this again. So on my phone, I'm gonna press this button, and you can see someone else is also doing it, right? We got 3 people, all from iPhones. So maybe I will do one on Android as well.
I'm trying as well.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. Those are a ton of tokens. Okay, let's try to send notifications to everyone. So now to send notifications, it's as simple as an API call. So I'm going to use a tool called Insomnia, which makes these API calls. So this is send push notification. This is the body. If you guys want to get this as a curl call, you can get it from the Expo site. So if I do Expo, push notification overview, or they also have a tool that you can use, or you can use the API call in Insomnia. I think now I'll just use this. So you go to send notifications with Expo's push API, scroll down, and you get this protocol to basically send push notifications to users, right? And this is basically what I've just copied in Insomnia right here. So in our case, I want to basically send it to multiple people at once, and I believe it does take this as an array. Oops. So all I need to do is basically just copy all of these push tokens, which would be fun. And these will all be strings. See how many I can do quickly. It's gonna be unfair if I don't send it to everyone, so bear with me.
Sean says, this is so great to learn how to implement this.
Oh, that reminds me, there's Expo has a limit of batching it to a batch of 100. So if you have over 100 users, you would need to basically batch them into a set of hundreds and then send these notifications, which is take the first 100, make this API call, take the next 100, make this API call, and so on.
There are duplicated tokens that you added.
Sorry?
There are duplicated tokens that you have added here.
Oh, yikes. Sorry. I didn't pay attention to it. Let's see. GS, 5BZ. I think it's this one, right? This. I think that should be enough. Did I miss anything? Oh, the last one. But that's also a duplicate. We
It's
should be
duplicate.
good. And did I add another duplicate one? Ah, I think we should be okay. So let's try it. Here we go. Did anyone see Hello World on their phones?
We did.
Hey, awesome. So
I didn't see it. No.
are you on an Android device, Ramesa?
No, iOS, iPhone.
iOS. Oh, interesting. So sometimes what will happen is you might want to put the application in the background and then see it, because Expo has basically two different ways of setup in which if you want to see it when your app is foregrounded, or if you don't want to, or if you only want to see the push notification when the app is backgrounded. I did send another one. I don't know if you receive it or not, or maybe I can ask you to update your token again. No?
No. But Alexander, say, could you please send it again? It was in a sleep mode, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. I can send it again. Let's do send.
I didn't see it again.
Can you go to
Anyways.
your Oh, can you go to your notification section, Ramesa, on your device and see it there?
Yeah,
Because
must probably, yeah.
I see all three on my device. And but yeah, that's the flow. And in case, actually, that brings up a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Ramesa. Let me share my screen again. And this time I can get away by just doing this. And so there is another endpoint that Expo provides, which is to check if the notification that you've sent has actually been successfully delivered or not. They recommend waiting 15 minutes to basically look out for these receipts. So this ID that we are getting back can be used for another endpoint, which is get receipts. And this endpoint is also available right here. It's called push receipts. So this basically tells you if the notification that you sent was sent successfully, or if there was an error, it will report back. Here's a list of errors: device not registered, message too big, message rate exceeded, things like that. And just to show you that live, I just copied an ID. And again, this is an array as well, so you can send multiple IDs at the same time. I make this request, and it tells me that the status of this was okay. So you can technically find out if the notifications that you're sending has been sent successfully or not. This covers a very, very basic implementation. Again, for those who haven't received it, you can give it a try yourself on your own machines. If there's a problem, do let us know. But usually if it's sent to one, it would be sent to someone else as well. Go ahead, Sean.
Is Expo also like if we wanted to put like a little notification badge on the app icon, is Expo where we go look for that API call as well?
Great question. So it's automatically going to take your app icon that you have. It's not going to show you the Draftbit live preview icon. We don't have a way of configuring which icon it will display. It will always display your app's app icon.
No, what I'm actually talking about is like if I want to essentially show somebody that they have notifications in the app to go look at, like when you look at mail, you've got a little icon that says, 100 messages unread. Is Expo the same tool we would use to push that information?
Yes, so those are called badges. So you would basically send a badge number on your request. So if, for instance, if you're sending 3 notifications at a go, so you would send the first one with badge 1, which can also be added to your API call itself. Maybe it's probably better if I show it to you here. My screen is not shared anymore. Bear with me a moment. It's available in the docs section, and we also have that in our app itself. I mean, in Draftbit, where you can basically send those badges. There's only one small problem with it is there's a lot of work that would need to go on. For instance, like you have 3 notifications. Now you open your app. So from your app, you have to send that the user has actually seen those notifications, right? Because otherwise, the next notification you send can either be the fourth notification badge or it could be the first notification, depending if the user has seen the previous notifications or not. So you would have to build that in to support it. Otherwise, by default, I think the phone will already show you that if you have a notification and would show you that badge as well, as far as I remember. But give it a go. If it doesn't, then you can use the badges to manually configure what shows up on the badge. Otherwise, the system already has a way of showing how many notifications are pending on your app.
And that's just called badges
Don't we have?
in the system.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Ramesa.
Yes, Sean, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So it's called badges in Draftbit. I just searched for that.
Correct.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, there is an action, I guess, regarding badges count or something in the builder as well.
Exactly.
Does that
That's
help
what
in
it.
that situation?
Yes, that's what it does, Ramesa. That's the one I was referring to. Apparently, badge is iOS only, so it's not supported on Android.
Okay.
What else? We have 2 minutes left. Any other questions?
This was really helpful. Thank you.
I'm happy to.
We don't have any questions, I guess, but we have Richard's issue. I just checked it, the conditional display thing. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually, I think I can show it here or in intercom. It doesn't matter. You choose.
Oh, because I have another call in a minute, Ramesa, so I have to jump off. But if you want to continue
All right.
here, or we can do it over intercom as well.
Okay.
So,
I think I can record a Loom and share with Richard then.
cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
everyone.
joining, Alexander. Thank you. See you in the next episode.
Thank you, Rahul.
See you.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
Rahul.
Thank you, Mesa.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.